When I was young, I used to bump crossroads at the intersection. Simile syllables rip them faster than a millisecond. Opposite of the pulling guard, hit them with the misdirection. These rappers stink, somebody get them a fresh breath mint. These boys rookies like orientation with 10 freshmen. Spitting whack writtens, good riddance, that's a death sentence. Defend the throne, Polamalu with the interception. Gun laws non-existent, unlimited Smith & Wessons. I put on for my poly people across the globe. A small number, but we worth more than a pot of gold. My first love was the Kush blunt in an Optimo. Until I met my baby, I told Jane, you gotta go. Grow from seed, flow poetry, family straight. Never catch me with a groupie hoe, that's a sad mistake. Hit the studio, lay music real people can relate to. No matter how good you do, some people still gon' hate you. Stay faithful, this is fate, I was born and made to. Captain of your own ship, watch.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the 2-on-1 Fantasy Sports Podcast. I'm your Commish, Tommy Mo, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere at 2on1FFB. And today, I'm bringing you another off-season episode presented by the Undroppables Network of Podcasts and brought to you by AnalystDepot.com, because they have the tools you need to be an amazing fantasy football analyst. With up-to-date statistics, custom player data, and projection AI, they are making fantasy analysis easy. So on today's show, we're going to talk about rookie quarterback prospects. And to help me do that are two awesome guests from the fantasy football community, two guys that are fantastic player evaluators and guys that I trust. So first up from the Windy City is the owner of AngeloAnalysis.com, where he joins his background in sport and human performance with fantasy football analysis. And you have probably seen his Why series on Twitter, where he breaks down why you should be high on certain players. You can find him on Twitter at Angelo_fantasy. What's up, Angelo? Welcome back to the two.
Yeah, man. It's been a minute, man. I appreciate you having me on again. Thank you. Yeah, man. I'm excited to get going. I know we have another great guest in Matt, so it's gonna be a fun time.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back. You came on, I think it was early last season.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we did like a NFL preview for 2020. And
yeah,
man, I think not too many hot takes on that show, but there's a lot of things that we thought might have happened that just was so different, because 2020
wild,
was crazy.
Man. Yeah, for
wild
sure.
year. So the second guest on today's show, up next from Baltimore, is one of my old colleagues when I had the honor to write some articles for his old site, the Dynasty Draft Room. But he has now moved on up to the director of fantasy football at the NFL Draft Bible, which is now part of Sports Illustrated. So you may know him as the FF_educator on Twitter, better known as Matt Hicks. What's up, Matt? Welcome to the 2-on-1.
What's up, my man? Glad to be here. And listen, man, I'm back with my man Angelo too. I feel like I'm just in good company here tonight, so I'm ready to chop it up.
Yeah, you guys have been podcasting together pretty recently, huh?
Yeah, but last week, right?
Yeah, watch out, man. I don't need another podcast on my on my agenda, but it might end up happening. We keep showing up
Probably.
together.
It's gonna happen. You guys are just gonna have to start your own and just add another one to it.
I'm supposed to be coming on as the guest, but really, I just like to listen to Angelo talk, so I can jot down some notes.
Come on, man.
Well, that's why I bring you guys on here to make me look good, because you bring all the smart, like super well thought out analytic minds to my show to help me look good, help our listeners gain some great knowledge. And both of you guys I know are fantastic film grinders, but it's not just the film, but you have such a good way of looking at players, evaluating players. Angelo, like I said, with your background, taking not just your degree and in sports and human performance, but you also played ball too. Was that correct?
Yeah, I was a track athlete. So I played football in high school a bit, but I was a collegiate track athlete in the Big Ten. So it was great kind of seeing some of those guys up close and personal, being able to compete against like Tyreek Hill, like Raheem Mostert, DeAnthony Thomas, like some of those dudes who have, man, those dudes can roll, right? They have jets. So Yeah, man, that was a really fun experience. And a lot of what I do now is based off of what I did then. And then what I do with athletes now and coaches and practitioners and kind of I'm in that world now, but it's a little different on the, I guess, more the analytical side for me of breaking down film and trying to find ways to help, people improve, whether it's a coach or an athlete. But yeah, man, it's been a ton of fun, man.
That's great, man. And yeah, and if you've been following Angelo for a while now, he is one of the early guys that were high on Laviska Shenault, and did a really great thread about him on Twitter, turned that into some really great series on his website, angeloanalysis.com. And now going into a new year, possibly with Trevor Lawrence now at quarterback, it's looking like that. How are you feeling for Laviska moving forward? I mean, I definitely grabbed him in a lot of places because of you.
I mean, man, thanks. I mean, I'm excited. I mean, man, I think Urban's going to turn him into the Percy Harvin. That's kind of my hope. So I think his role is going to expand. I was really impressed with what he did last year when he was on the field. He only missed a few games because of his hamstring injury, but I was really impressed, man. He did everything that we thought he would do coming out of Colorado. So, but man, I mean, sky's the limit for that kid if he's an alpha in that offense, and with Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence coming in.
Yeah. Yeah, and is there another guy? And we'll get to prospects later, and we'll talk about some of your favorites. But is there another guy that in this draft class that kind of not necessarily reminds you of Viska, but has a similar place in your heart and your analysis because some guy that you're really high on?
Yeah, I think it's actually Devonta Smith. It's funny because Laviska Shenault's 6 foot tall, 230 pounds.
Yeah,
and Devonta Smith 6'1". 170 pounds soaking wet, right? So they're very opposite in terms of body types and how they went on the field of play. But I mean, for me, man, he is honestly probably one of the biggest unicorns of this generation. I mean, we are in 2021, and an 167-pound wide receiver is dominating 4- and 5-star cornerback recruits in the SEC on a week-to-week basis. So what he does at his playing weight is phenomenal, and the type of movement skills he has. And I get the between the ears skill set too. I mean, he's just such an intuitive, smart, intelligent player that's just gonna be a treat to watch him at the NFL level.
Yeah, I love that take. We are not even 8 minutes in, and you already reminded you why I invited both of you guys on, because I'm gonna have analytics guys on later, stats guys that are just gonna hate on him because his BMI. But the fact that you're seeing what's on tape, that's why I don't get, like, I get he's an outlier analytically, but when you watch his tape and see what he can do, and like you said, going up against the guys he's going up against and making them look childish, how can you not like who cares that he's skinny? Like he's if he's skinny, he's performing past where he should be being so skinny, being so thin. Right. It's just, I love watching his tape. Love watching what he could do. I did a video for under review on YouTube, and watching what he could do against press coverage and how he was able to get off of it, how he was able to beat the guys before the play even started because they weren't even actually trying to press him. He's in their head. He's so good that he's beating him before he even gets out there. And I love that take because I really hope he's going to be awesome in the NFL. He could translate that over, because a lot of people just lately just seems like, I don't know, they're hating on him because of that size, or just don't think he can be, the same type of guy in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. No, I listened to Crocker.
I
think it was on your guys' pod too. He was fantastic. I mean, he talked exactly about like some of the same thoughts that I have. Is there's a reason DBs don't press him, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's such a threat on every play. You look up and it's 6 on the board. He's, like I said, man, he's just so intuitive. He has such a great feel for the game and understanding at his age. But he also is a legitimate athlete. And that's one thing I don't think people understand. And I think Matt and I talked about this in the last podcast we were on. I mean, he's a 10.6, 700-meter guy. So he's not slow. I mean, he has wheels. And Waddle ran like 10.84. And Waddle's considered the fastest guy in this class, right, outside of Anthony Schwartz. So, I mean, it's really interesting to see how the NFL is gonna view him. But I think with some players now that are playing at a lesser weight, you heard Chad Johnson on I Am Athlete, that podcast, say he played at 170. Right. Antonio Brown played around 175. Stephon Diggs plays right in the 180 range, 178 or so. And we're getting some of these guys that are such good movers and so efficient in space. I mean, we're getting these guys that are technicians and craftsmen at the position. You know, Jerry Rice was kind of the godfather of that. And now we're seeing guys in 2021 really taking that to the next level with kind of how the NFL's evolved.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good too that there's been already some smaller guys that have infiltrated the ranks, you know, and making it a little bit palatable to see a smaller guy out there playing wide receiver. Now, Matt, you know, I kind of teased it in my intro. You know, going from the Dynasty Draft Room now to NFL Draft Bible. How's that transition been for your evaluation analysis process this year going into 2021? Because it was just last year, you know, that was just your guys' team grinding, kicking butt. Like I said, bringing me on a little bit just to write a couple things, but seeing how you guys work so well together as a team, how's it now going to such a bigger team with Draft Bible? And I don't know if Sports Illustrated is helping you guys out too with that.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I was just talking with my man Zach about this probably about a week ago. You know, it's funny. We have a large team now with Dynasty Draft Room. We had a core group of dudes, probably about 12 of us, right? Just really grinding out content and had to do it all, man. You know, it's like you do the fantasy big board for Wednesday and you turn around that mock draft, the NFL mock draft, the 3-rounder for Monday, right? And you're just putting out all those types of articles. But you know, we have a huge team, and so we have a whole fantasy unit now. And you know, I have really honed in on the fantasy side of the game, which is what I love, right? Like my thing is that I love to take my experience watching these guys in college, watching their film, and project out their early fantasy football careers, right? Their first year, their rookie season, spilling over a little bit into their second, third seasons. And I get to focus on that this year. I'm like 80-something prospects deep in film review. It's a stupid amount, and I'm just going to keep going until I just totally, you know, get sick of tape. I haven't hit that point yet. I think we're kind of getting there, though. Once you start flipping on player 85 and you're like, this is the 39th wide receiver in the class, it starts to get a little old. But it's fun, man, because I get to just hone all in on the fantasy side of things now, really dig deep. And it's also been cool, man. A lot more video content this year, kind of have the ability to do more video content, which I love. Yeah. Started a couple side projects as well this year. So it's been fun, man. And it's been, it's an innovative environment, which I love. I always loved, you know, starting new projects and figuring out new ways to get people into the game.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's too, you know, one thing we've talked about with Undroppables, you know, we sometimes get into our own, not necessarily cliques, but your own space with the same type of players, dynasty players, people that tend to be on the same, relatively same level. But there's a lot of casuals that come in too that really you need to, fantasy football needs to be really inclusive of that too, and bringing those casuals in to the game. It's, you know, not saying it's a safe space, but, you know, it's a space too where you can learn and just get better. And you know, if you're in a situation where, you know, someone's making that a toxic environment where you're not going to want to be there, then that's, you know, that's going to suck. So that's really cool to see the growth, you know, you guys progress into now the Draft Bible, and looking forward into this year. I mean, I'm assuming, well, I guess, what do you guys have planned for the draft? Is there anything coming out or anything that you guys are going to do? I know you guys did some streams last year, but you plan similar type stuff for the draft this year? Or?
Yeah, I don't think I can give the details yet, but it won't. It actually, it'll be more on the NFL draft side of the house. So it's not my side of the house. So I'm like fully coming to grips with the fact that I'm probably not going to host a live show. So I'm like I'll be trying to get on everybody else's live show. So hopefully I'll be bopping around doing appearances. And what I'll really be doing is sitting there plugging guys into my projection sheet all weekend long. Like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Because, you know, everyone's looking for that Monday drop of the updated rankings with the projection, and they're already doing their rookie drafts because they're degenerates like us. So, that's kind of what's been going on with draft weekend. But if I could just quickly go back to a point you just made there, I love what you were saying about, you know, I personally, like, my big mission right now is to help kind of grow the game, because I feel like we get so caught up in like competing with ourselves, you know, and each other in the fantasy space, and nobody in particular. I've been doing it for years, you know, it's just natural. Right. So, but like, especially when it comes to like Devi or some of the campus to Canton, some of these aspects that haven't really been grown yet, you know, I'm just like, looking to grow the pie. You know what I mean? Like everyone's fighting for a slice of the pie. I'm trying to make a bigger pie. So I love that there's folks like you guys kind of doing the same thing. And I hope more people like listening to this and just like out there content creators or consumers, you know, really just kind of take that mindset of like, you know, you don't have to follow the same 12 opinions and, you know, expand that circle, bring more people into the game. If you've never heard of something like Devi before and you want to give it a shot, like hit up my DMs. You know what I mean? Like I'm always just trying to get more people into it because we can make a really big pie here, man. And we're just focusing on fighting over a little pie. So that's kind of the mission right now.
No, that's great. That's a better way to look at it too. Cause and we've done a few clubhouse, rooms lately for the Undroppables, and that's one thing we talked about in the first couple of them was just like how to set yourself apart and be different and come into this space, this fantasy football space, try to make a name for yourself or do a show or pod or, you know, what do you need to be different because everyone else is doing that too, you know. But branching out into new areas like Superflex, Devi, Campus to Can, confession time that I just got into my first Campus to Canton league. Yeah, just recently with a few guys from Twitter. Shout out to EK Baller.
That's a good. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so jumping in that and doing my first, the first NFL draft portion of it and the first startup, and you know, just trying to make some moves, and then you know, you want to move back for a second. I'm like, yeah, cool, I'll move back for a second, you know, and then like, wait, that's not gonna be worth shit next year. Especially with the late second, you know, and the rookie and whatever, you know, if it's, I guess, whatever rookies are left over. So, you know, just making those like first time mistakes and like, but you just have to do it. You have to like jump in and try new things and get into something new. Vampire leagues were the, you know, kind of the rage a couple of years ago. You know, maybe they'll still come around, and there's always best ball, but this time of year when people are just itching for something. And hopefully they can wait to do their rookie drafts after the draft, because there's going to be a ton of great information. The analysis will be complete with landing spot and draft capital factored into the models and to the analysis. So I'm excited. Undroppables have a few things going on too. Not like kind of I can't really say them all as well. But planning something for draft day, and you know, Matt, part of the reason I was asking because I was on your guys' stream last year when the Raiders still hit that.
That's right. We timed that up. Timed that up.
And still have PTSD from that pick, because I was just
that same face that you made when they took Ruggs was the face me and Zach, the first year we did the stream was when the Giants took Daniel Jones, and I think it was the same face of like man. I'm still living that face, so hopefully you won't be living it for as long.
I hope so. There's less picks this year for the Raiders, so hopefully.
Well, I mean, my face is permanent. I'm a Bears fan, so that's a
hey man, Andy Dalton.
Don't do it to me, Matt. Come on. Dog.
So I mean, that's a perfect segue, Angelo. Into
I don't think it is. I don't know if perfect's the word I'm going for right there.
He said no, thank you.
Recent free agency moves, transactions. So what? Come on, how you feeling, Andy Dalton?
See, I think if Bears fans are listening to this, they're
There's a few.
And
I know. There's a few.
It's when you have so much mediocrity at one position for such a long time. Like, I've been a Bears fan my whole life, so I've experienced mediocre quarterbacks my whole existence, and now we have another This thing is, Andy Dalton is probably the second best quarterback since 1985 for the Chicago Bears. That's not good. Like that's not good. It's Jay Cutler and then Andy Dalton, and then tier break, Mitch Trubisky potentially. I mean, like, that's the thing, man. It's just tough. It's a shot in the heart when you think there's a chance you get Russell Wilson. I mean, when I heard the news they're after Trent Williams, I'm like, oh man, like if they get Trent, they're getting Russell. No, they're not. Trubisky's not gonna be protected by Trent. No chance. Yeah. That's not gonna fly. Right. But my hopes and dreams were crushed yesterday evening. But I actually like Andy Dalton. Like, he's a good leader. He's good in the locker room. He understands the system. He's been with Laser before.
Yeah.
But it's like you want more because the defense is always given that city more for the better part of a decade.
Yeah.
Especially like Lovie Smith's there's like, man. Like,
always. I mean, decades.
Come on, man.
The defense has always been phenomenal.
Like the 85 Bears on. Like, come on, man. Like, we had like Rex Grossman start a Super Bowl. Like, bro, like, come on, give me something. Like, give me something else. So I'm still holding out hope they trade up and acquire Lance or that's kind of I'm holding off hope here. I don't have much hope, Tommy. I have a little bit of patience left. So hopefully a trade for Lance can invigorate a little bit, but it's not good.
I mean, Dalton's definitely, going to be the stopgap, bridge to the next guy. So hopefully, hopefully they can figure it out but it's been tough. I pay attention to the Bears because Khalil Mack was my favorite player. So him going to the Bears and one of my good friends is a Bears fan. So, I just, you pay attention and you see it and they've always had guys and it's just like, man, of the quarterbacks that could be available, Andy Dalton, yes, might have been like one of the best backups last year, but at the same time, it's just a backup. He's a backup for a reason. It's not, I don't know, it's not exciting. I mean, at least it's someone that can run an offense and be a field general and possibly do something a little bit more than Mitch, but you get a feel for Bears fans, for Allen Robinson, for guys that are hoping for it to get better. So it's sorry, buddy. I feel bad.
It is what it is, right? I mean, right. I don't know. I mean, honestly, like I'm more than content with like giving. Like, I was more than content with them last season. At the end of the season, like, Trubisky didn't throw much at all. Just give Montgomery 30 touches a game and hope to God he has 150 yards rushing and like 200 total yards almost. Like, that was the game plan. Just give D-Mon as many touches as you can and keep the defense off the field because that was a huge deal. Like 2 years ago was Mitch Trubisky just 3 and out. You can't get Mack and the boys tired. I mean, they had a legit defense. Max Fuller. Fuller, Jackson, Hicks, like those are some dogs, right? And you'll combine that with Roquan, like those are heavy hitters on defense. But if we're 3 and out on offense every play, I mean, what can you do? So hopefully it's a little better. It can't be much worse. So we're just holding out hope that we can trade up for Lance. I'm going to keep saying that. Yeah, just
speaking into existence.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah. Put it on on the dream board.
That's number one on the dream board, 100%.
I think Lance would be a great fit, especially if he can sit behind Andy for most of the year, and learn and develop a little bit more, get some more time with the team to develop his skills. And just let's keep talking about Lance, trade up for Lance. We're gonna make this happen.
Thank you.
And so last time I did a pod, there's been a lot of things happening. I mean, day one, so to speak, for free agency, the Patriots went off, just adding everybody to their team. It seems like, especially with grabbing 2 of the best tight ends that are out there. I'm shocked that they landed them both. Matt, what do you think the fantasy implications of adding Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry to this team? Do you think? Well, which one do you think will be the better pass catcher, be the better fantasy asset, especially because there's some guys out there that have both of these guys on their team, on their rosters, and now they have to deal with them on the same team?
It hurts me to say this, but neither, man. I mean, I'm going through and I'm actually – I got to New England today, so I just finished up their team. I'm going through. I'm doing my first round of projections right now, and it's tough, man, because – if you look at it, even when Cam is really at his best, and I don't think Cam's washed. Like I think Cam can put together a good season, but I don't think they want him to throw the ball much more than like 475 times, maybe 500, right? And then you look at what they're doing here. All right, you bring back Julian Edelman, right? maybe N'Keal Harry goes. Our best shot is if N'Keal Harry gets traded, right?
Yeah.
And then you bring in Aguilar and Jacoby Myers, man, like he did good when he got his. So, and then you bring in Kendrick Bourne. There's just not enough to go around, right? Because then you got to get the ball to Jonnu and Hunter Henry, and they're going to split, right? They're going to eat into each other. And the problem is, at the end of the day, like Cam has a good season. He pushes 20-something touchdowns. Like he's not this high touchdown guy. And I'm not knocking him either because he's not going to be asked to be, right? Like that's not what New England's doing. They're going to run this. I make the joke all the time. I think they should run the triple option because it seems like that's what they want to do with the ball, man. So it's just like I could fudge the numbers as much as I want, but it's not there. So I have a ton of Hunter Henry. I have some Jonnu Smith. And it's going to be fun from an NFL perspective. Like, I'm sure Pats fans are ecstatic because it's a smart NFL move, but we're just destroying the tight end market, man. I mean, it's tough. Like, I want to say one of these guys is going to be relevant, but I can't.
Yeah, and, the low-hanging fruit is to say it's going to be another, Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. And, that worked at one time. It worked for those particular guys, but it's definitely not the same situation. It's not the same team. And it's definitely not the same quarterback. I mean, that's the biggest difference right there. Cam's not Tom Brady. We all know that. It's not that guy. We're still supposed to work on a project, me and Adam Hutchinson from the Droppables about Cam's throwing motion, and seeing what's going on there. Because, is his shoulder still, really preventing him from throwing the ball as accurately, or is just that's how he's going to throw now, and it's not that great. And we just have to live with that. And like you said, Matt, not to have that many attempts, and really keeping them on a relative pitch count with, trying to run maybe it's not a true triple option, but maybe it's more like a wing T type situation or something where, they have all the running backs, they have all the tight ends, and running like a Georgia Tech type offense, maybe that's the way to go. But
like the what is it, the Wrecking Crew or the Georgia Tech, what is it, like the Hammering or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. And so other big name, there's some wide receivers out there that still haven't been signed yet. We're still waiting for Juju Smith-Schuster and Kenny Galladay, but Curtis Samuel today ends up on the Washington football team. And so Angela, how you feeling about I guess, Terry McLaurin a little bit, but the opportunity for that Curtis now has as, most likely the number 2 right away receiver on that football team.
Yeah, I actually kind of like it because he's for once the unquestioned 2. I mean, you would think. I mean, in Carolina, they had a lot of mouths to feed last year. You had Moore, you had Anderson. When CMC's healthy, that's a giant chunk of target share.
Yep.
So I like it. I mean, I would hope Turner, is a little better with his usage of Samuel than Carolina, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how he meshes with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So is he going to be a downfield threat? Because he can be. He has the speed to win on the third level, and he has the capability to also win with manufactured touches. So I think it's going to be an intriguing, I guess, season to see how he fits into that offense. But I like it from a fantasy perspective because I think he's the unquestioned, like number 2 in targets. I like Logan Thomas a ton too, but I think Samuel is definitely going to be, would you be shocked if he gets 100 plus targets? 100? No, I think he can get 110 targets potentially. I mean, that's pretty reasonable. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is not a big check down guy. It's not, JD McKissick gets hurt from Ryan Fitzpatrick going there, and Gibson's going to be fine because, I think his touch share is going to come mostly on the ground. But it's a great move for Washington, and they're really building an extremely solid win now team. Which also they have some young pieces as well. Like Gibson's great. Logan Thomas isn't young, but he's still developing into a potentially be a really good tight end. But I like what they're doing, and I like the Samuel signing for sure.
Yeah, and that Logan Thomas take. I mean, yes, age-wise, just age alone, he's not young.
No,
but he's only been playing tight end for like 2 years. You know, and we all know tight end is the slowest maturing position. And guys like Kelsey and Tony Gonzalez, were well productive into their 30s at the tight end position. And so, yeah, I really like Logan Thomas as still a relatively low buy because of that. He's just kind of coming into his own at the position. And so I'm even for Dynasty, I'm not personally worried about his age. I'm because the relative age to position still relatively young. So, yeah, I like that a lot. Juju Smith-Schuster, Angelo, any speculation where you think where he might end up or where you'd want him to go?
I think he's going to be a tough one to peg because I think Galladay is headed to New York right now. I think that's going to be the fit there. But with Juju, I think the best fit might be Miami. I mean, they need someone, who can operate primarily in the middle of the field, on the first and second level. And Tua needs that guy, right?
Uh-huh.
No one there is that guy, Parker, Williams, Gesicki, like that's not them. And so, right. I mean, Lim Bowden's their slot receiver right now. And he actually had a pretty good end of the year, but I think, Juju would be a nice dimension in that offense, especially if, even if they trade back from the 3 with Carolina, and let's say that, they're sitting in the, back end of the, around the 8 or so in the first round, and they take Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith. I think putting some weapons around Tua is priority number 1, and Juju Smith-Schuster is definitely someone who I think would mesh well in that offense and would be a very viable fantasy producer.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt, same question to you about Juju.
It's interesting. I'm trying to cross-reference projection volume that I have in place right now and then the salary cap and trying to make sure I give an answer that makes sense. I mean, Miami's a great choice. One that it sounds a little out there, but my gosh, Dynasty Twitter would lose its mind. Kansas City has the 8th most cap space right now, man. And they're losing Sammy Watkins. They're losing Demarcus Robinson. And
that guy.
But like they could play on the field at the same time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like those guys, they don't clash. So that would be kind of fun. But you know what I would love? Like this is really just because I'm looking for any justification to save Henry Ruggs. But send Juju to Vegas, man. I know you would love that. And what my big thing with Ruggs is, like, I don't want him to be the best receiver on the field, right? Like I need him to be the second best guy on the field. And like Juju to Vegas, everyone would be focusing on that. I just go send out offers for Ruggs because I think that's the best thing for him. Who did y'all sign today? John Brown? Like, come on, man. What are we doing with John Brown?
Speed?
We're still on that. We're still on the speeds.
Speed, man.
But it's tough. It's like you watch each day go by and these wide receivers aren't coming off the board and these salary cap numbers are dropping. So the last one I'll throw out there, and maybe even the best one, is, man, put Juju in the baby blue. Send him to the Chargers, man. I would love that.
I said that on I don't know if it was my podcast, someone else's podcast. I like that one the best. LA would love to have Juju back in LA. The city
that's true. I didn't even think about that. The USC connections.
USC.
One step ahead. I like that.
Exactly. Yeah, and he grew up in Long Beach, went to USC. So it'd be welcome him right back home. And
33 mil in cap space, man. That goes a long way this year. The way that they're just making up funny money contracts.
Right. Because Mike Williams he's up.
They exercised. He's playing on his 5th year. He's playing on his 5th year, so they exercised it. But even still, you know what I mean? You put Allen and Williams on the outside, you put Juju inside. What better can you do? And they have this money left over after investing in the offensive line. They got the running back for your quarter. Like, what else do you need for your young quarterback? I mean, they're going to need another tight end at some point, but y'all know I love XFL legend Donald Parham Jr.
Oh, no. People are going to be upset about the Donald Parham breakout.
Listen, there are a few more excited about XFL legend Donald Parham Jr. than I, but I'm also a realist here.
Hey, that you never know. You never know at the tight end position. After that, the first 4 or 5, it's a crapshoot.
It's all crap.
Might as well just stream it 1 week, see what happens. So what's up to our man Dan AWL Sabermetrics in the chat? and the last guy that's still out there, it just says a big name wide receiver, and almost surprised he hasn't found a home yet, is Kenny Galladay. Matt, where do you think he might end up or be a good fit for him?
Well, we are. The Giants are this close to not screwing it up.
They're they're on the 2-yard line.
But you know what, the Giants? All right, I'm a lifelong Giants fan here, even though I've also adopted the Ravens, being in Baltimore recently. But I grew up in Connecticut on the New York side, so the Giants are good at screwing shit up. All right, especially under Dave Gettleman. So particularly under Dave Gettleman. So there is no part of me that is accepting the idea that Kenny Galladay is going to go to New York, although that is what it appears to be. Yeah. It's Daniel Jones's last shot, man. He's got to make it in year 3. And you know what? Maybe he's had a fair shot. Maybe he hasn't. But, man, they need to give him the best chance. And they need to give him somebody over 6 feet, man. I mean, it's wild. They got all these small guys, and you have a not-so-accurate quarterback. You have to give him a little bit of catch radius to work with. So I hope so, man. And these other rumors of him going to Cincinnati, get out of here, man. Those are my T. Higgins targets, man. Don't get at my T. Higgins targets, all right? So send them to New York. Nobody's going to miss the Sterling Shepard volume or whatever the heck it's going to be.
I like that one. That'd be a great fit because I was definitely high on Darius Slayton going into last year, and no longer.
Right, but he's like another guy that shouldn't be the dude, right?
Right. Just
you have no business expecting what is he, a 6th-round pick? And I like Darius Slayton, he's good, but we have no business expecting him to be the dude on an offense where. And right? Wayne Gallman wasn't scaring anybody the last season or when they tried Devonta Freeman. So they're going to throw the ball to Darius Slayton. He's not he's breaking off slants. You know what I mean? You can, if that's coming, it's so easy to stop that. So you need to help him out a little bit. Kenny Galladay going to New York could be the best thing for Darius Slayton.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. 100%.
Yeah. Just let the guy catch touchdowns because it appears that's all he's really good at. So before we move on to our quarterback discussion, just want to give a quick shout out to another one of our sponsors of Viridian Global. There is no off season for style and comfort. With over 600 plus fantasy football t-shirts, hats, and hoodies to choose from, you can find a design that fits you. Each piece of apparel has been tried and tested with great brands such as Champion, Next Level, and Flex Fit. From Air Ayuk to Zero Running Back, and with over 25 fantasy brands as part of the football collective. Find your fit today at ViridianGlobal.com. Great stuff over there. Rocking my Dynasty Rewind shirt from Viridian. What we got, Matt?
I got the hat, man. The rookie big board hat. We're on Viridian as well. Yeah. Happy to be a part of the collective.
Nice. Angela, we're going to have to get your,
I know.
your stuff over there, buddy.
I know. I'm missing out.
So let's get into the quarterback prospect discussion. Matt, I kind of heard some of your takes regarding quarterbacks on Undrafted, the Dynasty Game Theory show with Jax Falcone over with the Undroppables, and so I've kind of been prepped a little bit to guys that you love and hate a little bit. So let's start with Angelo because I don't know who he's high or low on, and so. Kind of like Matt mentioned on his previous appearance on Undrafted, it seems like a lot of people have consensus generally at Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields at 1 and 2. Is that the same for you? Do you have a little bit different?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Lawrence and then tier break Fields, and then after that's where it gets really interesting. I think. For me personally, I think there's going to be 4 quarterbacks taken the first 5 picks in this year's draft. I think Carolina trades up with Miami. I think they take Trey Lance, actually. So I think that's kind of where I have him pegged right now. But then for me, that's how it kind of goes. It's Lawrence, Fields, Lance, then Wilson and Jones. I think the wild cards out of the bunch are probably Lance and Wilson. I think they have question marks around them, but also the highest upside of the group not named Lawrence and Fields. I think with Lance, he's, especially in fantasy, he's that Konami code guy. He is going to be the dude, that has a 600, 700 rushing yard season potentially, because that's who he is. He is an unbelievable runner of the football, and he's a guy that's extremely athletic, has a rocket arm. He's he's going to make an offensive coordinator very happy, and I'm hoping it's Joe Brady. So he's interesting. I think with Wilson, he's kind of like Jay Cutler to me. That's who he kind of reminds me of a little bit.
I hope that's a good thing.
It isn't. It isn't. Like I think it's one of those good and bad, because when you watch him play, he has like this style and like aura almost about him that's kind of unique to him. And it was kind of like that Jay, like I don't care what you think attitude. And like Chicago loved Jay. Like I love Jay. Like Jay's that dude, right? But then like you hear like the character concerns for Wilson, and I'm like, oh no. Like that's not. It's one thing to be, I guess, like coachable, but another would be like unapproachable. So I think his character concern is going to be kind of magnified if he falls, and that's gonna be something that's gonna be interesting to see. Like I have that in my notes of things on day one of, is Wilson gonna fall, and if he does, it's because of that. It's because of nothing else. I think he's an extremely talented passer. But I think if he falls, it's because of the character stuff, and handing him the keys is an NFL organization going to be okay with doing that? And then the last guy is Mac Jones. I actually like Mac. I mean, people don't like Mac Jones because he's not sexy.
That guy doesn't like Mac
He's
Jones.
not. He's like not sexy. Like, dude, he's like Kirk Cousins. Like,
yes,
like Kirk Cousins is not sexy at all, man. Like but he gets the job done. I think, man,
not the sexy pick.
No,
definitely not.
No. But I think he, he can win you some football games. I don't know. I mean, he's probably gonna go, I think, around, I don't know, pick 15-ish. Like I think we have 5 quarterbacks in the first 15 picks.
Oh wow.
I think that's a very big possibility. I think the Bears, Lord help me, if they decide not to trade up for Lance, and let's say Mac Jones slides and they take him at 20, I will not be very happy. Like I won't be on Twitter for probably weeks. I need to go take a vacation somewhere. I need to cool off a bit. I need to go to Maui with my wife.
Yeah, just suspend the account for a little bit.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I don't know how that works or anything like that, man. But I'm just gonna dip, because come on, man. There's only so much like middle tier quarterback play a city can take.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big one for you. Because is this the first year that the Bears have a first round pick because from like the Khalil Mack trade?
Oh, God, yeah, actually, I think it is. Yeah, and it's 20, so it's not a great one either. So
no,
it's
and it's been a while, so it's like
it's been a minute. I mean, I would like, in all honesty, I would like Rashad Bateman there. I think you can get him there. I think he's a good player. I don't know. I mean, Bateman, he's definitely the guy I would probably want there, because I like Mac Jones, but he's not the savior of Chicago. No. That's not him. But
I mean, if you want a Kirk Cousins, he could be, where you build around him. You have Allen Robinson staying. If they let Anthony Miller, go or trade him, then you still have Darnell Mooney. I mean, I love Mooney.
Yeah, I do too. He's a beast.
David Montgomery, I think, is super still underrated and has finished both last 2 seasons very well. Tariq Cohen's coming back.
I like Tariq Cohen.
I'm trying to make you feel better about this.
You say Tariq Cohen does not make me feel better. We paid that man. I have no idea why, but it's all right.
He's got potential. We've examined and looked at how some of those pass catching running backs can do a team very well. So I don't know. I think you got some potential there. And if the Bears did have Mac Jones, I think if you can invest around him with the defense, spend money on that, you can at least do something. I mean, at this point, it's better than Mitch. Like that, we just have to go up from there and see what happens. But yeah, another guy. I'm gonna spoiler alert unless Matt's drastically changed his feelings on Mac Jones. But Angelo being another has Mac at quarterback 5, a very common place that I've seen him outside of the undroppables. we at one point were consensus quarterback 3 on him, but a couple guys have recently dropped. I think possibly after like listening to guys like Matt talk about why they don't like Mac Jones. So Matt, why don't you run down your top 5 QBs before we get into the rest of the 5 who kind of, I don't know, they kind of matter. I mean, but your top take on your quarterbacks.
I think we're lined up. So I have Trevor Lawrence, clear tier 1, jumping down to Justin Fields, who is not in the same tier as Trevor Lawrence, but he's I like to say he's a lot closer to Trevor Lawrence than he is quarterback 3. I think Justin Fields is getting a real bad rap. I think he's easily the QB2 in this class for me. And then I have Trey Lance and Zach Wilson in that order. And I think, as Angelo alluded to, that's the one you're going to see a big divide on. Do you like Trey Lance? Do you like Zach Wilson? For me, yeah, I think you have a real good NFL prospect argument behind this. But from a fantasy perspective, man, like it's easily Trey Lance for me. So, if we're kind of comping from a fantasy perspective, and this isn't a pure, like draft prospect comp, but I think a really good way of thinking about these guys, Zach Wilson reminds me of Baker Mayfield a lot in his play style, that like gunslinger mentality. He's mobile, but he's not a runner, right? Like he's going to get a little bit of running action in the NFL, but you're not going to run design runs for this guy. In fact, you cannot. Like he was not good at that at BYU, and he's a gunslinger. He's got a big arm. But I think when he gets to the end, there's some examples of Zach Wilson really getting out of trouble. Like he even in his best tape in 2020, like he'll huck that ball downfield into triple coverage, and like Utah State will drop the ball. You know what I mean? Like because of some of the guys, he wasn't consistently playing against the best competition. So I think he got away with a little bit in terms of just his box score. And that's not to say I don't like Zach Wilson. I mean, my dude has an arm, and he is so freaking fun to watch play. And he's a guy who's kind of benefiting from this, like, improvised arm angle, huck it, chuck it football kind of thing that quarterbacks are kind of getting away with. But I think when he gets to the NFL, I think they're going to rein him in a little bit. Like Baker was kind of wild in college in the way that he played, and they really reined him in. Part of that's being in Cleveland, of course. But we saw this last year, like they asked him to do less, and he produced more. And I think we're going to have a kind of a similar situation with Zach Wilson, where as I see with Trey Lance, man, I see Josh Allen when I watch Trey Lance play. From a fantasy perspective, you got a guy that can huck the ball downfield. You have somebody who is a pure athlete. Like he's really going to be able to run the ball. And what I love is you have a strong runner. Like he's 6'3", 220, and my man loves the quarterback power. Like he loves taking on these FCS linebackers and trucking them, right? So this is a guy, he's going to get those goal line red zone carries. And that's going to equal fantasy football rushing touchdowns. And there's nothing better for your quarterback, right, than to have that rushing touchdown upside. So from a fantasy perspective, it's easily Trey Lance for me. And I understand there's a lot of concerns about, the amount of games he's played. He has started the exact number of college games that Mac Jones has significantly played in, right? So they're at that same level. And I don't care that Trey Lance is doing it at the FCS and Mac Jones is doing it at Alabama. And that says a lot because everybody knows I'm an SEC homer, all right? But what Trey Lance was asked to do at North Dakota State, like they don't call the plays from the sidelines, all right? Like Trey Lance is required to make those checks at the line, to call his own audibles, to move his own guys around, call the defense, kind of point out all that stuff. And in terms of mental processing, kind of consistently what we're hearing from the NFL side is that North Dakota State asks him to do more in game prep for the week than Alabama asked Mac Jones to do. And that's not a knock on Mac Jones. That's just the programs and the situations that they're in, right? So Trey Lance, I think, is just as mentally prepared as Mac Jones, but he has a much, much higher ceiling in terms of his tools. Yeah. So, that's kind of where I go with Lance and Wilson. And Mac Jones is a clear 5 for me. I think it's just that, like, if you compare him to the other guys, he's boring, right? But the other thing that it comes down to me for Mac Jones, he's solid. He has a decent arm. He has good accuracy. He has decent mechanics. They're a little inconsistent for me, but he has solid mechanics. What really gets me stuck with Mac Jones when I'm watching his evaluation is he is a purely pocket passer, which from fantasy football purposes, we know already really limits what he's going to do, right? But the other thing about it is that he's not comfortable in the pocket, man. Like the way that he felt pressure at Alabama really got me, because he feels ghost pressure really easily, like, right? So he feels that defense getting to him even when they're not getting to him. And it leads to a couple things. One, when he has bad decisions on tape, it's usually because he's feeling ghost pressure, not real pressure, but he feels like the defense is closer than they are. And the second thing, which drives me absolutely bonkers, man, he throws off his back foot so much. And when he does that, he throws off his whole throwing motion. He throws off his accuracy, but he does it so consistently, and he doesn't have to, right? And so it drives me wild watching his tape. Like I actually start like cursing at the screen at times, because I'm like, man, if you would stay put. And this is the Alabama offensive line, man. Like it doesn't get much better than that in college. I think maybe Oklahoma had a better offensive unit at that front line than them last year. And probably your Ohio State listeners are probably getting upset at that idea as well. Those are the three offensive line units. So if you're not doing it behind that offensive line, man, you better hope when you get to the NFL, it's a good offensive line. So like, I hope he lands at Washington, man. I hope he doesn't land in one of these spots that's not going to protect him, because it's going to be a rough go of it if he doesn't have the guys in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I was going to start this by so Matt, why do you hate Mac Jones? Because I did hear your take on undrafted, saying, similar thing about the pressure and phantom pressure and him having an issue in the pocket. And my review of him, one, just watching games as they happen over the last 2 years, but going back on the film and really taking a look, it seemed, I did see that, but I felt like he did that a little bit more or early on than he did later on, like towards the end of his senior year. From what I saw, it seemed that he seemed to be a little bit more comfortable got more comfortable in the pocket. I really liked his lateral movement and stepping up in the pocket compared to some guys even like Zach Wilson. And then, I did see him throw off his back foot as well also, but he was doing it and still hitting like a 40-yard post, or hitting a dime on the sideline on a 9 route. And so if he can get those mechanics down a little bit more, where he is throwing off his front foot, where he is following through a little bit more, and not throwing off his back foot, he would be even a little bit more accurate, or at least have a little more power in his throw. But I saw the mechanics, but then I saw where the ball ended up too, at the same time. And man, he's still getting it there, and he's still being super accurate. And Devontae Smith running and catching it. Devontae's amazing, but they still had to do it. They still had to run and get the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like we just cut up the rookie profiles, right? So we kind of put together highlight clips when we do our short profiles for the rookie big board, and we just did our Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle profiles. In both of them, you see a lot of the highlight plays. It's these guys reacting to these underthrown balls and they're going up and getting them. So it's like it always leaves you with a little something more. You're like, damn, like Smith made that play, but like he shouldn't have had to try that hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like you had him 5 yards in front, but you threw that ball 7 yards short, so Smith had to come back and get it. So it's just those types of things, but. I think Mac Jones can be successful in the NFL, right? I don't think that he, is doomed from an NFL perspective. But at the end of the day, man, it is so difficult to properly evaluate and develop professional quarterbacks. It's so difficult. And so for me, at the quarterback position, like if I don't love you, I hate you, because I'm not gonna invest into you never know. Or, possibly, sure. If you're playing in a super flex league and Mac Jones is hanging around at the 302 for some reason, sure. But I can't invest a top, a first or second round pick, even in a super flex league, on the idea that somebody might hit. You know what I mean? I mean, because there's just so much variability at the quarterback position, especially. Right. Like, we kind of fall into this draft capital argument, Josh Rosen, Dwayne Haskins. Just because somebody goes in day one does not mean that they're going to make it as a quarterback. And those guys kind of had different situations, but it's just that's the Sam Darnold was a top 3 pick, and he's going to move on from his first team, it seems like. So there's a variety of factors that will cut your fantasy projection or career projection, in a totally different direction at the quarterback position. It's so difficult in the NFL to be a good starting quarterback. We've seen that, how many guys are still with their first team that gets drafted is like that crazy stat. So it's tough,
how old
man.
some of these guys are. That's why Tom Brady stays in the league and people want to pay him, because even though they're old, they're still making it happen because
Fitzpatrick,
that quarterback position's so tough.
Dude.
I thought that dude was retired. I really did. And then, but that, and even like Andy Dalton, I know we were kind of saying like, you're just okay, but like, it's difficult, right?
Yeah, no,
it's difficult.
Teams need a quarterback that can execute an offense. And that's the biggest thing is, can you do that? There's so many quarterbacks who have unbelievable talent physically that cannot. Like Dwayne Haskins and Mitch Trubisky are both physically talented throwers of the football.
Yeah.
Can't figure it out. They're going to be starting quarterbacks in the NFL because they can't figure that part out. And that's huge, man. I mean, we saw Deshaun Kaiser, who was oozing with all the physical tools you could want. Can't execute an NFL offense, basically out of the league at this point. There's no chance he gets a starting job anymore. So it's tough, man. I mean, the quarterback's the toughest position. It is probably the toughest position in sports, in my opinion. It's just so many different variables from, like the social, emotional variable of having to basically carry a city on your back, especially like a big city in a big market like Chicago, New York. Like, man, like that's tough. But then you have to execute an NFL offense at an extremely high level. So it's tough, man. I mean, I like Mac, but I don't know, man. I mean, like I said, like if the Bears take him at 20, I'm not happy because to me, he's like, is he better than Andy Dalton? Peak Andy. Is he going to be better than peak Andy Dalton?
Peak Andy?
No, I think Andy.
Probably
not. I think Andy, yeah.
Right?
I mean, tough, like Mac Jones, man, I mean, to this point, he needs to go to Washington, right? Yeah. Like Mac Jones needs to be in a spot where the defense is really good.
Yes.
And
the O-line's good.
And you got that running back, you got the good O-line, right? Yep. You got the versatile guy. Now you got two versatile guys in Gibson and Samuel, right?
Yep.
And then you got F1 who could stretch the field a little bit. Logan Thomas is coming into it. So like just give him enough, right? 100%. Just enough. And that's the best situation for Mac Jones. Then he could really focus on executing the game plan, and having a guy like Fitz there to help from the mentor side of things would be fantastic. So perfect. Washington gets their money just from that perspective. You get him in the same locker room as Ron Rivera. Like, all right, we could coach this guy up. Like, I can get behind him at Washington at 19. But even then, right, in the ideal NFL world, I'm not drafting him for fantasy football. It's just not there. You know what I mean? But, if I'm a Washington fan, I could see the upside to taking Mac Jones, but not from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, that's why it's funny people doing rookie drafts now, because then it's just all on speculation. And these guys might end up in like terrible situation for them, or just, something where it might be good later, but they're just gonna be sitting for, at least a year or two. And but yeah, I have the same top tier: Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and then it's those next three guys that for me, over the last like 2 months, have just been kind of cycling through that who's 3 or 4 or 5, and literally it's been rotating as I watch them, because it's constantly changing. And I see things I love about these guys and things I hate. And Zach Wilson, I worry. Best case he's Baker Mayfield, and worst case he's Johnny Manziel. And I see similar types of game with both of those guys and their swagger. And Justin Trey Lance, I just worried that coming from North Dakota State and not playing more than really a year, is really going to be a detriment. But he has all the physical tools, so it makes sense. And then Mac Jones, part of me kind of fell in love with them at the Senior Bowl, just practices, seeing how he really processes and goes through his reads and his progressions, and can really take control of the field and be a real field general. And I feel like in a class that is filled with a little bit more dynamic runner type quarterbacks, also Konami quarterbacks, he's kind of the rare one that can just sit back there and sling it. And yes, like you pointed out, Matt, he definitely does have his faults, but there's a certain aspect of his game that I've liked, and why I've had him at 3 at times, just because, at the end of the day, the NFL is evolving, but it's still geared towards a pocket passing quarterback for a lot of these NFL teams. So depending on where he falls, I think it could be a really good situation. But I do admit that when I do have him higher, it's at times because I think he's going to be a better NFL quarterback than he is going to be a fantasy quarterback. And I'm always like trying to temper my rankings based on, okay, like what am I basing my rankings on? Like NFL or fantasy, you know, we're working in the fantasy industry. So they should be based on where he's going to end up in fantasy. And that's why I always kind of tend to bring him back, but I just feel like he could be a very good NFL quarterback by the time his career is actually done. And so it's these next, you know, those 5 guys. I think this debate has definitely been had on Twitter. And a lot of people kind of feel similarly and have a lot of similar takes. But it's these next 5 guys, roughly 5 or 7 guys that, you know, are we really going to see any of these guys really make a fantasy difference, or even make it to an NFL team where they could be a solid backup and maybe worth a taxi stash or, you know, just a late round pick. Angela, who, I don't know if you want to rank 6 through 10 or just say who you might like a little bit higher of these next guys.
I think there's only 2 guys for me that I'm looking at, especially like in rookie drafts, like later. And number 1 out of those is Kellen Mond. I mean, I'm not like super excited, but I think he has.
You know, like Chris Sims excited?
No, I'm not. No one's Chris Sims excited, dog. I mean, if it's Chris Sims, he's going in the top 5. Watch him actually go in the top 10, and all of us are just, you know, Chris Sims the GOAT, you know.
The GOAT.
But he's good, man. I mean, he's got good physical tools. And, you know, if he's coachable, you can mold that. And if he can process the game at a high enough level, could he contribute? Sure. But the other one is Jamie Newman, kind of that same thing, you know, physical tools, man. He has the physical tools. But can he process the game at a high enough level? And does he have the intellect to make checks, to, you know, to be, like you said, man, like be a field general, like be like Aaron Rodgers out there? Does he have that part of his game that we see a lot of the top tier quarterbacks that they always possess? Like the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL are, you know, those guys are the smartest guys on the field.
Yeah.
Is that going to be some of those guys who, their physical, their mental processing traits can catch up their physical traits? We don't know that answer, but guys who have that physical talent have a little bit higher of a ceiling. But I mean, the floor is for those guys is the basement, you know.
Right. That's like the problem.
Kyle Trask isn't a super sexy one either. Like I'm not a big Kyle Trask guy.
Someone was throwing the ball to Tony and Kyle Pitts, but
boy, Kyle Pitts is a skyscraper. Like, my man, you throw that thing up and he's, you know what I mean? And then Tony's a different. I can go on for about hours for Tony. Tony just get the ball. You know, it's college football, right? He makes it happen, right? So I'm not a big Kyle Trask guy. But yeah, outside of the top 5, it's really, I think, just Mond, Newman, Felipe Franks is fast as heck for being 6'7", but that's really it. Like, I don't think I'm not expecting much outside the top 5, honestly.
No, and we've seen these guys, play with other good talent, like I was saying with Kyle Trask, but it's just something about him. Sam Ehlinger has been around for a while. We've seen him do his thing at Texas, but is that really going to translate to NFL? Is he really going to be successful doing what he does? And it's like at best he's like maybe a Tim Tebow type or something, but it's not that either. Matt, do you have any of these guys ranked or higher? Kellen Mond, I get it. I dove into his tape a lot, but in a lot of ways I saw a slower Colin Kaepernick type of guy. Where he does have some rushing ability, but it's like he's just not as fast, but has kind of a similar throwing motion. Matt, who do you like out of this next tier? Because like I said, it's not great.
Listen, man, I've been here with Kellen Mond. Like I was at this same place we are at with Kellen Mond 2 years ago when I was on his hype train, right? Like it was this idea of like, look at these tools. we rein these in a little bit. We make them a little bit more consistent. We have something. And I've been doing that for 2 years. So I don't think it's happening, guys. If it didn't happen at College Station, it's not happening in the pros. And maybe it does. And, good for him, because the tools are there. And he's fun to watch play, dude. Like, he is such a fun college quarterback to watch play. But, like, I don't see it. Kyle Trask, man, how the mighty have fallen. My timeline was convinced we had a first round top 10 pick back in October. And I was kind of getting trashed for kind of pumping the brakes on Kyle Trask. And now people are like, yeah, maybe he'll go day 2. And I think he goes day 2, right? Because I think, there's going to be some NFL franchises that kind of see that upside with his size. And, they're going to look at his limited playing time in college and say, man, we can make something out of him. But there's not as much time to develop at the quarterback position as we think in the pros. Like, there's only so many snaps at practice. These rookies have less time in the preseason. The preseason is going to get shortened. It sounds like that's going to stay, right? So, all of this stuff, it hurts the quarterbacks developing. So, when I'm looking for a couple things of guys who, obviously draft capital is important. I want tools. I love Jamie Newman. And I'm always looking at, like, why aren't they a first-round pick, right? Kyle Trask, we kind of saw at the end there why he's not going to be a first-round pick because he's still lacking on the mental side of the game. I think his tools are a little bit more limited than we necessarily think. Jamie Newman, man, like, he's not going to be a first-round pick partially because he opted out of that last season at Georgia. I think that was a bad business move. I'm not going to knock anybody for opting out of this past season. Who knows what was going on behind the scenes, right? But he had the opportunity, and who knows what would have happened. Maybe he would have went to Georgia and looked great. Maybe he would not have looked great, but he had the opportunity to be a first-round pick because he has the arm. He's got good arm strength. I love his mobility, and his mechanics, they need to be tightened up. His accuracy, it needs to be more consistent, but he's got the upside, man. So I can't wait to see who Jamie Newman. I think he could be this round 3 quarterback that ends up being a starter down the line. Now,
100%.
Would I put $100 down on that? No, probably not. But you know what I mean? But, like, if you're going to go for one of these guys, go for some tools, and so that's one side of the spectrum. The other argument you can make is go for one of these guys that is coachable. They're going to get hyped up for their leadership skills. They're going to be somebody who just hangs around with a clipboard for a lot of years. And, maybe at some point the couple guys in front of him go down and he gets a shot. That's what happened with Kirk Cousins, right? Like, he wasn't ever supposed to be a starter. So you got guys like Ian Book, Sam Ellinger, who are kind of like known for being these, like, I call them clipboard holders because their tools are a little bit limited, but, like, they're good decision making on the field. And they get all the coming out of Notre Dame. You're wearing the gold helmet. You got the leadership skill. You kind of get hyped up from the NFL side of things. These aren't necessarily like my words. This is kind of like what you hear. So I think these guys, they'll go day 3, but, like, I don't know. Maybe it's worth Ian Book goes somewhere where there's not a lot of quarterback depth. The first couple guys go down, and then all of a sudden, well, he's got to throw the ball, right? Like, there's not much in LA right now behind Herbert. So, like, I don't know. You put somebody. You put Sam Ellinger in there, and I don't know, something happens. It's the NFL. You're always one snap away from throwing the ball, right? So that's kind of the two ends of the spectrum that I would go for. Either go for tools or clipboard holders. And obviously tools are a little bit more fun to go for, but there's some value in clipboard holders.
Are there any of these guys that you would even take a late round flyer on in a super flex rookie draft? And like I said, stash them or taxi or just have him on your roster.
Newman,
give me Newman.
Yeah. I'd say Newman. Newman more than Mond.
I'll throw out one that's like, if you play in stupid leagues like me where you got 35 roster spots and then like another 5 taxi spots and you draft people that are never going to see the field, Shane Buechele out of SMU, man. I love Shane Buechele. He's just like a huck it, chuck it football kind of guy. He's only 6'1", 205, so that size is going to knock him. And, he was a Shrine Bowl guy. He wasn't a Senior Bowl guy, but he's fun, man. He's got a big arm. He's not afraid to use it. He pushes it downfield. I think he's got a really nice throwing motion. I think he's just limited a little bit in his intangibles. And if you remember, Shane Buechele was the quarterback at Texas before Sam Ellinger took that job. And Buechele did decent with it. He kind of pulled them out of just this like horrible quarterback spot. And so And then he tore it up at SMU. And so I like Shane Buechele a lot. He's going to be a day 3 guy. Who knows if he even hangs on a roster, but I like him a ton. So if I'm playing in like a stupid deep league, then I waste a taxi spot with Shane Buechele.
Yeah, why not? Or like some of those double super flex where you're basically running like 3 quarterbacks and you need just breathing bodies out there sometimes just to make a roster spot. But yeah, so yeah, the kind of I'm with you guys on the same with those same 5 guys. It's kind of a crapshoot. Yeah, Kellen Mond, I could see him ending up some game in 2 years. All of a sudden he's the starter for whatever reason because someone got hurt, and all of a sudden like, oh yeah, Kellen Mond, like I remember that dude. He's still playing, and but after that, yeah, good luck. So if you're in these superflex rookie drafts, we've been seeing in mocks and early startups where these quarterbacks are definitely going early. So yeah, it seems like a lot of the draft class this year for each position is pretty top heavy with like some really good guys at the top, and then after that it really starts to drop off. And we're seeing that with the quarterbacks, right after 5, it's you might as well just focus on something else because crapshoot at that point. So with before we wrap it up, can I get your guys' favorite and least favorite prospect in this rookie class at any position? Just someone that you're really high on, and then conversely someone that you're definitely lower on than most.
Man, I'll keep mine pretty brief. I know we talked about it a little bit before, but my favorite prospect is Devonta Smith. I think he's, in some of the mocks I've been in, and he's gone in the like 202. Like,
oh wow, that late.
Yeah, and people are like, the other ones I've been in, it's been like 111.
Yeah, I've seen him that like later.
Yeah, so I mean, like I'm taking him right around 106, 107.
Yeah.
Like I'm gobbling up that value all day long. And on the other side of it, Travis Etienne is probably the guy. It's not that I'm low on him, but I think he has a lot has to go his way for him to have the consistent success that we think he's going to have. Mm-hmm. I know we saw the 40 time, but him playing at 215 isn't realistic. He played his best ball at 199, man. I mean, I think he's going to probably be around 199 to 203 when he steps foot on the field. But I mean, he didn't look natural at 215 either. That didn't look like a good weight for him to play at and play at a high level with. So,
right.
Those are my 2. But at cost, like both those, like especially Etienne, I would take Etienne a little later in the first round than he's going. I mean, I see right now he's and some mocks have been in 105, a little earlier sometimes too. He's sometimes the first back off the board. But for me, I'd spend a later first on him. But I think a 105 or so is a little rich for me right now.
Yeah, and it's definitely gone up and down. I mean, his value has been bouncing all over the place this entire offseason. So I think a landing spot is going to be big for Travis because, in the right situation, I really like his profile and what he could do on the right team. I just think it really is going to matter which team that is. Matt, how about you? Someone you're higher and lower on?
Yeah, I like the way you phrased that because at first I thought I was going to get trashed on for hating on some guys because I don't dislike any prospects, just what I got to pay for them. The guy I would probably say, I seem to be higher on than consensus is Terrace Marshall. He's my wide receiver 3. He's 7 overall for me on a Superflex ranking system here on the big board. And I love Terrace Marshall, man. I think he's a field stretcher. I love his straight line acceleration. He wins in the deep third of the field. Like that is not something you consistently see from wide receiver prospects. And that's what we need in fantasy football. We need guys that win in the deep third because that gets us touchdowns, right?
Yep.
And which is the big points. He's 6'3", 200. And if you look at this draft class, you're not getting that size, and he's even lengthier than that size, right? So you're not getting that in this draft class. I keep saying, man, I won't be surprised if he slides into the back end of day 1. Like I think he's definitely going early day 2, but I think he could fall in that back end of day 1 as we kind of start looking for guys. And if he does, like what if he ends up at Kansas City? Like I know that's kind of like an example, but we just talked about earlier how they need a wide receiver. Like what if he ends up on any of these offenses that are more productive and efficient because they're drafting at the back end of the first as opposed to the top of the second? You know what I mean? So he could really have some upside to his game. So I really like Terrace Marshall a lot. And then, I'm deciding which guy I get knocked on where I have Javonte Williams and Rashad Bateman, but we were talking running back. So I'll stick with Javonte Williams, man. So Williams is my 16 right now on the Superflex big board. So, I've seen him in mocks. His Superflex ADP right now for Draft Bible is 106. So I'm way lower than him. And, I'm doing right now at Angelo. I think you're in this too. We're putting out kind of expert mock draft for fantasy pros. Kyle Yates is putting it together. I think the article is going to drop next week. Javonte Williams went 101 in this article. And for me, I see it with Javonte Williams, but there's some real limitations to his game for me. I think his speed is really limited comparing him to Etienne or Najee Harris. And then for me, man, the inconsistency of his vision. If you cut up some highlight film, you could see some really nice vision at times from Javonte Williams. But if you really kind of consistently get into his film, there's some real vision issues for me. And there is nothing that's going to tank you in my formula worse than a running back that can't see the field consistently, because you could be the best running back. You could have the best skills in this class. And if you can't see the field, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get on the field in the NFL consistently. So, I think Javonte Williams could be a good running back in the NFL, but I don't see it right now. So, that's why he's a mid-second round pick for me. And he's not gonna, right? He's going to go in the first round of every single rookie draft this year. Yep. So I will have 0 shares of him. I just think it's an overvalue. I think we're reaching a little bit because we want another running back, because there's not much guarantee after Najee Harris.
Yeah. I'm gonna change the name of this pod to "Why Matt Hicks Hates Your Favorite Fantasy Players."
I didn't even give my Rashad Bateman take. If you ever want to get ripped to shreds on Twitter, what you got to do is just hate on any Golden Gopher. If you just hate on a Golden Gopher, then Twitter will break you down.
You're done. No, I love Javonte, but he's kind of risen in my rankings over this analysis period and listening to other people on Twitter, because I think they make some great points. I love the way he runs. And then same with Terrace Marshall. I actually started with him as my wide receiver 3 when I first started my analysis. So just off the gut, where I had him was wide receiver 3. He's kind of dropped a little bit. But a lot of these guys, sometimes you're just splitting hairs, and a lot of times too, I'm just going to go back to if I liked you for a reason in the first place, I have a hard time really bringing you down unless the analysis, the tape, and all the analytics really speak otherwise. But I think those are all great takes, both on the good and the bad. And before we take off, because we are at the end of our time, why don't you guys leave us with how about leaving our listeners with the last free nugget? Matt, why don't you go first on this one?
Oh, sorry, I was taking a drink of water. Free nugget, anything?
Free nugget, anything, any free nugget, dynasty related, draft related, NFL draft, right. anything for this, and even whatever you want to leave as the free nugget.
No, that's good. I was actually just scrolling down my big board now because I was like, who else could I have talked about? I mean, I could ramble about any of these guys, but one guy that I think is criminally undervalued right now is Demetric Felton at a UCLA. I like Demetric Felton a ton, man. And he played wide receiver and running back at UCLA, and he was productive in both spots. He goes to the Senior Bowl. He looks really good in one-on-one drills. Yep. And I think he could go day 2. He could possibly slide into day 2. But in rookie mock drafts, man, I haven't seen him go before the 4th round. I have him 23rd on the big board. That's a second-round value. So
yeah, that's great value.
And he's an athlete, right? So some teams might draft him as a running back. It's like screaming Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I don't know, man. I like him a ton. So there's your nugget. Keep an eye on where he goes in the draft.
Yeah. So if Felton's there in round 3 or 4, that's a smash all day.
Yeah, man.
Especially in the 4th if he's still there. What about you, Angelo? Free nugget for the listeners.
First, thanks for having me on, man. It was a blast wrapping up with you guys. Man. Thank you again. My free nugget is trade for 2023 first. That's my free nugget because I think we put too much stock in the next draft class.
Yeah.
But the 2022 class is pretty reminiscent to the 2019 class, where you're going to have you have like AJ Brown, you have obviously DK, you have McLaurin. At running back, like who's the best running back out of that class? I don't know. I mean, you can make a case for 3 of those guys, but I mean, in 2023, you're going to have Bigsby, Robinson, Gibbs. You're going to have some studs, and you're going to have Kayshawn coming out. I mean, you're going to have some
of the quarterbacks too,
some hitters. Yep, at quarterback too, you're going to have some guys there. But that's my inkling. It's going to be pretty deep. So I mean, training for 2023 first is something I'm trying to do right now.
Hell yeah. That's a great free nugget. Yeah, and you can find all the free nuggets by subscribing to the 2-on-1 Fantasy Sports podcast anywhere that you download and subscribe and listen to podcasts. Just go on there, search The Undroppables. You'll find all 4 podcasts in the Undroppables network of podcasts. And before you sign off, make sure you're going onto Twitter, onto these guys' websites, and following them at Angelo_fantasy on Twitter, running angeloanalysis.com, and Matt Hicks at the FF_educator. Thank you guys both for joining me on the 2-on-1 Fantasy Sports. It was awesome to talk to you both again. And if you're out there listening, like I said, subscribe, follow, do whatever you need to do to get information from these guys, because they're fantastic. And I'm so glad they came and talked to me today on the 2-on-1 fantasysports.com fantasy football podcast. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.